Alright, I'm going to start on this by taking off this wheel hub so that we can remove this whole thing. I've got a 7/64 Allen to remove these little screws. Now there is a little ring in here that we need to remove, and I'm going to use a pick. It's easiest to find one end of the locking ring and get the pick on that. There we go. So once you get under, it's pretty easy. Now I'm going to remove this with these snap ring pliers. Now I'm going to thread in a couple of these bolts back so that we can remove this part. There we go. Now we are going to use the hub bolt remover socket to remove these two nuts with the spacer in between. There's one. Now we gotta fish out that little spacer thing. There's that. All right, so now this whole assembly and the rotor should come off of the axle. You're gonna want to be careful because those bearings are loose in there, to not tilt this so that the bearings fall out like that. So we're gonna store this with the hub facing up until we're ready to reinstall it. Now we're going to remove this so that we can remove the axle. I've got a 9/16 for this. Alright, it's been a couple days since the last clip. I soaked this with some PB Blaster and it's broken loose. I got a bigger dead blow hammer, and so I've hit it and it's broken loose, so it'll come out now. So now we have more room in here to deal with this lower ball joint and to get that nut off. This top one is going to be a 33 millimeter, or I believe in standard it would be 1 5/16 inches. And I think I saw in the book that you need to mark with this caster camber washer thing where it is when you remove this ball joint, so that you can reinstall it in the same spot. So I was gonna paint everything, so I don't know if I'll just take a chisel and kind of put a little dent in to each piece, but we'll figure out some way. So next we're going to remove this nut. I've got a 7/8 socket to remove this nut here. And I put that nut back on there so that I would not damage the thread with the hammer. Now we're ready to remove these ball joint nuts. So we'll start with this top one and the cotter pin, getting this removed. I've got a 1 1/8 inch socket on the lower ball joint nut. All right, I've finally broken the bottom one loose. I had to get my big breaker bar on it, and I had to heat it up for a while with that yellow MAP gas. Probably about 20 minutes of heating up that bolt just to break it loose. But so I'm going to remove that, and then we're going to get the knuckle off of here. All right, so we've got this knuckle removed, so now we can get these ball joints out of here. This bottom one has got a snap ring in it. So now we're ready to press these out. I'm going to remove this little greaser with a 5/16 socket. Yeah, this is how I've got it set up. So as you can see, I've gone through the bottom, where the bottom ball joint was. I loosened this clamp here, and then I was able to pull this axle out of here. I'm ready to start pressing in these new ball joints. These are the ones that I bought, some Moog. K8195T is lower, K80026 is the upper. So we're gonna get those pressed in. This greaser is 5/16. Obviously, I made a boneheaded mistake on this one. You want to do the top one first because you gotta stick this end in through the bottom hole. But I figured out a way to make this work. Here is the part number for the stud that I'm going to install that I was missing out of one of my hubs, 36326-2. All right, and when we install the spindle part, when we put the nut on there, it'll pull it the rest of the way through. Got a 33 millimeter for this one up top. I've got 1 1/8 on this one on the bottom. I had some problems with this lower one, getting the nut to not just spin with the ball joint. Ended up jacking this knuckle up and pressing the ball joint up in there so that the stud doesn't spin when you're trying to get the nut on there. And I used my impact. It was still kind of spinning, but eventually the impact got it until it tightened up all the way. So now we are going to torque both these down. 100 foot-pounds is going to be good enough for both of these. There's a variation for both of these, but a number in the middle for both of these was 100, so that'll work for both the upper and lower ball joint. All right. So now we've got this cotter pin that we need to put through the top one. Got a 1/2 inch socket for these. These nuts here are supposed to be torqued to 30 to 40 foot-pounds. Got a 7/8 for this. All right, I'm ready to put on the rotor and hub. Put some grease on that spindle. All right, I've got my special socket here and my special torque tool. All right. And this one doesn't really matter as much, torquing it down. You just need to get this one snug so that it will hold that other one on there. So now we just need to tighten these down with a 7/64 Allen, and then we're all done with this side. So, we got the brakes. So once we get this on, we got to put our brakes back on. All right, so now it's just doing the same thing on the other side.